This is Jesse from Jester's Movie Reviews, and this is my review of The Dark Knight. Probably the most key thing that The Dark Knight does right, which was also probably the biggest thing that Batman Begins did right, is that Nolan and his cast and crew take the material 100% seriously. The Dark Knight has not a whiff of camp or condescension, even less than Batman Begins. The Dark Knight is working on a broader scope, including enough supporting characters and subplots to rival a Batman graphic novel. And in fact, that's really what the movie plays like. It's really the closest any Batman movie has come so far to really feeling like a Batman graphic novel. Unlike many of Nolan's films, which have reputations for toying with chronology, The Dark Knight has a linear chronology. But that doesn't mean Nolan has abandoned his fondness for complicated plot lines. Unsurprisingly, considering that his brother and the screenwriter of The Prestige, Jonathan Nolan, co-wrote the script with him, The Dark Knight has a very twisty-turny plot with some kind of new diabolical scheme hatched around every corner. It's not so labyrinthine that most viewers should get confused, but it's not a movie where a trip to the restroom is advisable. Batman Begins had a pretty straightforward plot line. Bruce Wayne spends the first half of the movie developing his Batman persona, and then the second half kind of uncovering and thwarting the, climactic evil master scheme. Things aren't that simple here. There is no grand climactic master scheme per se that we're used to seeing. There's just like an endless series of what could have been climactic master evil schemes, except that there's one after the other, starting from almost the very beginning of the movie and continuing until the end. And what might be more impressive than how completely seriously Nolan takes the material is how far he's willing to go to defy superhero movie expectations. And everything from Superman to all three Spider-Man movies to even Batman Begins, we have the feeling it's not that the movies are necessarily predictable or boring, but there's a level of we think we know what's going to happen. The damsel in distress might get thrown off a building, but she's going to be saved from certain doom at the last minute. The villain is going to hatch some evil scheme, but the innocents are going to be rescued. Without giving too much away for the people who haven't seen it yet, that does not always happen here. Much was made of Batman Begins taking Batman back to its darker, more serious roots, but there is darkness aplenty in the aptly named The Dark Knight that goes well above and beyond anything in Batman Begins. The movie warrants its PG-13 rating, and it's not so much through being graphically violent, because it's not in particular, but it has a very dark adult tone to it. The movie was not made, it's not geared, it might be the most adult-oriented, written for and made for adults of any comic book superhero movie made so far. Christian Bale continues to be virtually the perfect Bruce Wayne / Batman. He makes us wish that we could see more of the all too few little moments where he plays up Bruce's kind of airhead playboy facade, and as his true self, he has an imposing presence that none of his predecessors in the role is able to match. It doesn't hurt anything that Bale is by far the most buff and physically believable of any of the Batman actors. Of the other veterans, Gary Oldman has by far the most expanded role, and in Batman Begins he occasionally had these kind of silly comic relief moments, like he says lines like, "I gotta get me one of those," and he drives the Batmobile. He has none of that here. The Dark Knight is the best portrayal of Gordon we have ever had in any Batman movie. It's far from one of Gary Oldman's flashiest performances, but as in the Harry Potter series, he demonstrates that he is just as good at playing a simple, decent, normal character as he is at playing the foaming at the mouth bad guy. Gordon is the average Joe. He's not one of the flashy roles, but he's like, He's the everyman in the story. Between Batman and the Joker, then we have Gordon as the everyman. That is Oldman's role in this, and that's what he fulfills. Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman, of course, are welcome in any movie in any capacity, and of course they have some of the best lines in the movie. Of course, the most attention-grabbing newcomer is the Joker, played by the late Heath Ledger. The Joker is probably the best-known comic book villain ever created, and no fictional hero and villain are as inextricably linked as Batman and the Joker. And fortunately, the boundless praise heaped on Ledger's performance is not merely out of sympathy for his untimely death. Ledger's terrific, not only doing justice to the character from the comics, but providing one of the most memorable and endlessly watchable and rewatchable movie villains since Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. There are times when Ledger is hilarious in a bizarre way. Of course, he gets probably the most one-liners other than Caine and Freeman, and the sight of him in a female nurse's outfit just kind of prancing blissfully away as the hospital explodes in the background is one of the things that's almost worth going to see the movie just for itself. But he's not a goofy caricature. He's flippant, he has a morbid sense of humor, but where Ledger succeeds, where, in my opinion, Jack Nicholson failed, is that his Joker is also scary. Nicholson's Joker kind of invited us to laugh along with him. You laugh at Ledger's Joker, and then you're kind of nervous for laughing along at him because you don't know what he's going to do next. He has moments where he's very playful, and then, like in the same scene in the next second, he switches into like complete freaky scary man mode. The other main new character is Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, a crusading, idealistic politician of good, sincere intentions who any Batman fan can tell you is fated to become Two-Face, the Batman villain. As the movie goes on, Eckhart brings across that trying to clean up Gotham means more to him than just lip service and popularity points, as well as the chinks in his armor. Eckhart plays Dent with growing intensity as he reaches his inevitable downward spiral, but since he's still playing, at least for the majority of the movie, a relatively normal individual, his performance exists unavoidably in the shadow of Ledger's, but it's a very good performance. Maggie Gyllenhaal replaces Katie Holmes, who declined to return in the role of Rachel. Gyllenhaal is a more believable assistant district attorney. She's a more believable kind of hard-nosed lawyer type than Holmes was, but Rachel, in my opinion, is just kind of a superfluous character. Cillian Murphy has a fleeting cameo almost at the very beginning of the movie. Murphy's appearance is pretty pointless other than wrapping up a loose end from Batman Begins. The storyline juggles all kinds of subplots and side characters, but it's a testament to the Nolans' writing and filmmaking that nothing stands out as, you know, boy, this is wasting time, I wish they'd left this out. The Dark Knight could give Spider-Man 3 a few lessons, both about what darkness really is, and about juggling various plot strands without everything coming out feeling half-hearted. And there's any number of just surefire crowd-pleasing moments. Moments that when you're sitting there in the theater, you know the crowd's going to cheer at this point. When it comes to the hand-to-hand fight scenes, Nolan shows improvement from Batman Begins, allowing us to actually see the fighting. Flaws for The Dark Knight, I only have a couple nitpicks with the movie. In particular, I would have preferred if Two-Face had been created in one film and then left as the full-fledged villain in another, instead of being wrapped up in the same film. It doesn't ruin the movie for me, but it's my biggest nag with it, I guess. At this point, whether its cast and crew ever gives us another Batman film, Bat fans owe them, and Christopher Nolan above all, a debt of gratitude, and in The Dark Knight, one of the most ambitious and mature comic book movies ever made. Go see it. 3.5 stars.